Kansas City Chiefs won a hard-fought battle against the Houston Texans to claim their 7th consecutive AFC West divisional title. But I had a lot of questions about this team coming into this game, and I feel not a lot of answers. So today we're going to discuss that, as well as, is this team a real legit Super Bowl contender going into the playoff months and into January and February? But before we do all that, please be sure to subscribe to the channel and like this video, as I'm going to keep you up to date on anything Kansas City Chief related that you do not want to miss out on. And without further ado, let's have some fun. Now, as we discuss some of my key points and takeaways from this game, and if I believe the Kansas City Chiefs are a legit Super Bowl contender, the one reason, and probably only reason, that the Kansas City Chiefs will have a legit Super Bowl shot this year is because of your MVP this year in Patrick Mahomes. Yes, I think it is signed, sealed, and delivered, and I'm going to talk about on the perspectives on how I view Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts going into this, but Mahomes, he played phenomenal. Actually, the offense, they did their thing. Now, we're going to get into coaching and scheming and how I view that play calling. But right now, we're going to focus on Patrick Mahomes, and he played sensational. Maybe the best game of his career, where he threw over 40 passes, 5 incompletions. He had a string where it was 20 consecutive completed passes, and he was just on one. And it was basically him doing him and him finding a way to win the game, even though at the end of it, it was Frank Clark and Willie Gay on the defense to seal it, and then Jerick McKinnon to sign, seal, and deliver and close this game out. Mahomes did his thing throughout this game. And honestly, I view it like this for the MVP race, and I think a lot of people should as well. Just envision Jalen Hurts on this team. Are the Kansas City Chiefs 11-3? I don't think so. They might be a 500 team at best. Now, if you put Patrick Mahomes on the Eagles, they might be undefeated. They got a talented roster stacked on both offense and defensive side of the ball. Mahomes is willing the Kansas City Chiefs to victory. Not saying it's fully just him, but he's the one that's keeping them in the game, and the reason they're winning this game, like I mentioned, I'm not sliding Willie Gay or Frank Clark or Jerick McKinnon, but Mahomes is the one that week in and week out puts this team in position. No interceptions this week, so I think that brings his tally now, to 35 touchdowns this year, 4,500 yards, and 11 interceptions, and we still got 3 games to go. That means he will clearly eclipse 5,000 yards. He should eclipse 40 touchdowns, and if he keeps that interception ratio down, who is a better quarterback, not this year, but in the league and going forward? It's no question. It's no debate. I know we like to view Jalen Hurts because he's having a great year. He had low turnover ratio, and he's doing his thing. But if anyone was to choose a quarterback of the future, it is Patrick Mahomes, and there is no questions to be asked. Now let's get into the thick of things. I'm going to focus on the offense, defense, and special teams and tell you why I still got major concerns for this team. Mahomes is what makes them very solid. And if they can just click on a few of these pieces, they can be a well-rounded machine and basically go through any team and not be worried about it. But now that we're going into late December, I got major concerns. And we're going to focus on the offense to start off. And what has to be said about this offensive line? I don't get it. It's very concerning and very alarming. Mahomes was getting roughed up through this game. And Texans, they played it smart. And teams, when they want to take advantage of the Kansas City Chiefs, their defense plays aggressive and tries to show you, we're the big dogs, and you're going to have a hard-fought game. And that's exactly what the Houston Texans did. They bullied this defensive line, this offensive line, and we're getting to Mahomes constantly. And last thing I want to see is Mahomes keep getting hits, especially in a game like this. Again, I'm not sliding the Houston records for the record whatsoever. I know they're a competitive team. They showed it last week. But when you're 1-11 versus a 10-3 team, it shouldn't be this stressful or hard to watch. And coaching should find a way to execute and specifically make it to where Patrick Mahomes is not getting hit that often. And it is just ridiculous. And it's something that we need to basically evolve, enhance quickly in the next few weeks. Or Kansas City, I'm not saying they can make the Super Bowl with a shitty O-line, because they can. We've seen it against the Buccaneers. But we've seen the end result in that as well. And also in that year, Eric Fisher was healthy until December, and I almost said Mitch Moore. Mitchell Schwartz, he got hurt later on too. Majority of that year, they had a really good O-line until injuries started plaguing them. It's been like this all year where the tackles just are doing a very, very bad job. And I say that, and I know the numbers are going to come out, and it's going to be, oh, Orlando Brown did this good in pass protection. Andrew Wiley only allowed 1 pressure, 1 sack, yada, yada, yada. I'm tired of these numbers. I really am, because I'm seeing what is being presented to me on the field, and it is not good whatsoever. For example, Isaiah Pacheco, when he had that fumble, it really shouldn't, I get it, Isaiah Pacheco needs to hold on to the ball, but at the end of the day, the way Wiley got manhandled, a right tackle should never be on the far right-hand side of the field, all the way in the middle of the field where he's basically getting bulldozed into Pacheco. Pacheco didn't see that coming, because if you literally saw, I keep wanting to say Mitch Morse, I don't know why, Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith and Joe Tooney, they had, I saw it was a huge hole. And then out of nowhere, you see Wiley come in and just take out Pacheco. And you're like, what happened? And you don't even know it's a fumble. Pacheco didn't know he got hit. And I'm going to discuss this with Pacheco too. Pacheco played a very, very great game besides the fumble. The only issue I had with that was coaching. We see it 9 times out of 10 where Reed is very adamant. If a guy has a turnover, it's get him the ball again and get him to knock the rust off. I hated that they took him out for the remainder of the half and not let him capitalize. Because if anyone can do it as Isaiah Pacheco, we know he already runs angry, and they didn't let him do it until the second half again. And that was just mind-boggling, and I didn't understand. That was one of my main coaching concerns on the offensive side of the ball. As for the O-line, another issue I have, and it's just a trend that just needs to stop, needs to go away, but it feels like it won't. It's this turnover differential, and it's mind-boggling. I don't get it. At a point today, the Kansas City Chiefs climbed themselves all the way to -7 in point differential until Frank Clark caused a turnover to drop them back to -6. Isaiah Pacheco's unfortunate fumble, which, again, Wiley, don't know what you're doing. And then JuJu, he had a fumble, but again, that's another mind-boggling play as well, because I don't understand what the ref was doing there, because I don't understand that whole scheme of plays of what the hell was going on. But in those few drives, I don't even understand what the refs were doing, but at the end of the day, I'm not going to focus on the refs on this, because we're going to get some of those terrible ref games. But JuJu's fumble, it was definitely a fumble, but then just the progression of all that. You can challenge now whether it's forward progress. Shit, I didn't know we could do that. In the Tennessee Titans playoff game when Derek Johnson was so-called called for forward progress on the sack against Marcus Mariota, we couldn't challenge it, and that basically screwed our fate. And now you can do that. And then they got to re-look at the play, and the Texans got to basically, I don't want to say challenge again. I think initially it was reviewed, and then the Texans got the challenge to be like, hey, that ball was out. I do not know what was going on, and it was mind-boggling. Yes, it was a fumble, and I understand the play, but just what led up to those events, come on. But my main thing I want to focus on is these turnovers. They just got to stop, because these good teams will take advantage of them. The Bills, they'll jump on you. The Bengals, they will jump on you. The only reason this was a game was because of turnovers. The Texans had 14 points off of turnovers. If you look at the stats, this should not have been a game whatsoever. Kansas City, they had over 500 yards in offense. Texans were nowhere near it. They had 200. At the end, in the time of possession, Kansas City managed, handily. If you look at that on paper, you would think the Kansas City Chiefs blew out this team. But no, it took a walk-off home run from Jerick McKinnon to basically say, hey, we're taking this one home. And those are my 2 main concerns with the offense. I know a lot of people will focus on the wide receivers. I think they played very well in this game. I do want to see more Sky Morse. The only time we see him with the ball in his hand is wide receiver reverses, which he tends to do well on. So can we throw him the ball, see what he does? MVS, he's MVS. He made good catches, and then he also dropped a catch too. That was very easy. It's what you're going to get with him. We saw Tony into the system again, like we thought it was going to happen. Slowly get him in there. His role will increase next week and so on. That's going to be the same thing with McCole Hardman moving forward. And JuJu. JuJu is such a physical receiver. He is a beast. I swear, he takes some of the ugliest hits that you just don't want to see a receiver take, and then he bounces up. But every week it seems like he's getting hit in the head, and it's so unfortunate. And then you can't say enough about the guy Travis Kelce himself. We already know what he is. He's the GOAT. Over 10,000 yards. He just passed Shannon Sharp today, too. I think he had over 80 receiving yards off 8 catches. It was a very well-rounded offensive game. just one thing I wanted to see focused on, and it was towards the later half of the game. And what won the game, surprisingly, because Kansas City started off with such a slow start on offense, because I think their first 8 and 9 plays was passes. And I'm just like, the Houston Texans got the worst rush defense. Why aren't we running Isaiah Pacheco? It's like Andy Reid, Coach Bieniemy, and that offensive staff get so stubborn, so caught in their way that they just pass the ball. And then would you look at it? When Pacheco broke an 11 and then a 14, it opened up the pass game. Who would have thunk it? Come on. It's like so obvious. Like the run will always set up the pass. A run game might be the Kansas City Chiefs' strongest asset, and they just don't know it. And it's so unfortunate, because it would make this offense better. It would make Mahomes better. It would make everybody in this scheme so much better. But besides the turnover differential and the offensive line, if those can just, I think at the end of the day, the turnover differential, I think, is more likely than the offensive line. I just don't know what we're going to do with this offensive line. But the turnover differential, I just feel like Kansas City somehow, some way can cause turnovers on this defense. But we're going to get into that too, because I'm going to talk about this defense a little bit. Every time I think it's going to happen, it never does. So we're going to talk about this defense here shortly. Now, moving on to everybody's favorite side of the ball where they want to throw criticism at, and it's rightfully so, and that's the defensive side of the ball. And I don't know, guys. Like, I would love to say, like, we've seen it every year where Spags' defenses struggle, and then we see the improvements and we see the consistency of them being great. And we're at the end of December, and it's not clicking, and I don't understand. Yeah, they have positive plays here and there, but at the end of the day, for the majority of 60 minutes, this team is getting their ass handed on the defensive side of the ball. And one thing that frustrated me a lot today that I didn't think was going to happen was this defensive line could not cause pressure. And I already know they can't do that when they try to do it before. But again, I'm not slighting the Texans. But when they're a 1-11-1 team and you're 10-3, you find ways to dominate. Now, again, I know Chris Jones came into this game ill, so I anticipated he wasn't going to have the greatest game, but we didn't hear his name a lot. But we didn't hear any of these defensive line players' name called a lot. The one guy I want to shine light on, and of course, Frank Clark, dog. He came in when it mattered. Smell that blood in the water. That's the Frank Clark we need this postseason, and hopefully we get it. But on the other edge, too, is Carlos Dunlap. He has been such an excellent veteran presence on this defensive line. And I also want to mention Brandon Williams. 2 games, 2 sacks. He wasn't even supposed to be a part of Sacks Nation. He was just supposed to be stopping the run, and now look at him recording sacks. There are positive sides. And this defensive line in a whole, when they're on their A game, they will get after you and they will get going. Just in this game, against this team, against Davis Mills, against Jeff Driscoll, they made them look really, really good. And that's just what was so unfortunate, because it's any given Sunday given. But the Houston Texans were strutting out players that they're not even their starters, and they're 1-11-1. So they're playing like second, third strings. They're playing 2 quarterbacks at once. And Kansas City struggled with it. And Kansas City did scheme and practice for it this week. And it's just like, what are we doing, guys? And it was just so frustrating. I couldn't understand whatsoever. And the secondary got, and it was in the middle of the field. McDuffie even gave up plays. Sneed gave up a touchdown to a third-string tight end that was just like, what are we doing? And then that middle of the field was getting 8. And when you look at the Texans, it's just like they didn't do anything too fancy besides they moved the ball. And sometimes that 2 quarterback set worked out in their favor. And that's what bothered me in the beginning of the game, but they didn't stick throughout the whole game. I'm like, if they keep doing this, they're geniuses. Where when they had Jeff Driscoll in and they had Davis Mills lined up as wide receiver, I don't know if you guys solely focused on that, but Sneed was the one covering him. I'm like, change that up. Sneed is probably one of our, if not best, cornerbacks, and it's smart by the Texans. We'll line him up at quarterback, the quarterback as wide receiver, have them take one of their players, and it basically eliminates. It's smart. But when you're putting your best cornerback on there, get it to click in. Put someone else on him. That if they throw it to Mills, then you get burned. But at the end of the day, I don't think Mills is going to outrun you. Yeah, he had a couple good runs here, but he's not going to, I don't think, streaking downfield like Randy Moss and be like, oh, I'm going to moss someone. It's just not going to happen. Do not have Sneed covering him, and it's not going to be a situation they're in again. Just so frustrating, and I just don't understand it. And then, again, if we focused on the offense side of the ball, and we're going to focus it on the defense side of the ball, the turnover differential is cause turnovers, please. Like, the main turnover we caused is what sealed the deal. Now imagine if we got more of those. Like, the offense shouldn't be turning the ball over, but the defense should still be getting takeaways. Like, that's what's making this much more frustrating, and I don't know who to put more blame on, so I'm going to shove it on all you guys because it just does not make sense whatsoever, and that's what's going to be holding the Kansas City Chiefs back from being a legit Super Bowl contender because, yes, at the end of the day, Mahomes could put everything on his back and will this team to try and win a Super Bowl. But if pieces aren't clicking on both the field and off the field, and what I mean is coaching, it's going to be a hard day in the office every Sunday. In the playoffs, it's Saturday or Sunday. It's something that just needs to be corrected. And I just ask every week, can we please get a turnover? It happened in a crucial situation, and it shows you how pivotal turnovers are. But when your team is -6 in turnover differential and you're 11-3, it shows how good of a team you are, but it shows how great of a team you can be. Just get turnovers, and it's frustrating, you guys, because I just feel nothing's ever easy. But at the end of the day, teams are doing it, and that's why my next focus on this defense is going to be Spags. And I'm getting fed up. I really am. Like, the Texans, they didn't have Dameon Pierce, Brandon Cooks. I think they were missing Nico Collins. They were missing Derek Stingley. They were missing Steven Nelson. They were literally trotting up their backups to a team that's already 1-11. And we made them look good. Something has got to be corrected. And I'm not usually the one to call for people's jobs, but it's like, Spags is just not working out. And you might end up like Bob Sutton, where if you cost us a playoff game, you're gone. And that's what it's going to be. You've been giving up way too much yardage. Kansas City has been known for a bend but don't break defense. But this has been a bend, and we're going to completely break. And it's just been very, very unfortunate. And it hasn't been anything like Spags' defense in the past. I would love to say they can correct it, but I just don't know at this point. It's been so frustrating. We haven't seen it happen this long. We've seen in the past, we've seen stretches of really good defensive performances. We've seen it a couple of times this year, but never a stretch. And that's why a lot of people are calling for your job, because if you cost this team a Super Bowl, it's going to be your head, and they're going to find someone to replace you. And it's going to be hard. And that's going to be my main thing on why I don't know if I view the Kansas City Chiefs as a legit Super Bowl contender, because this defense reminds me so much in different assets of Bob Sutton's defense when we lost the championship game against the New England Patriots. It's really that frustrating. And if a defense costs Mahomes another Super Bowl, you're wasting the youth of this kid. Not saying he won't ever get back there, but this kid, we already say, should have 2 rings. And if it happens again, you're going to have the whole kingdom mad at you. So you got to make adjustments somehow, some way. I still believe, because I've seen the packages. I've seen the way the secondary can play this year and in the past, where you can coach and scheme hell of plays. Please, I beg of you, just get to it. And another guy now Chiefs Kingdom is calling for his head is, unfortunately, and we never thought it would come to this, Harrison Butker. What is going on, man? Yes, we understand that you had the injury at the beginning of the year, and last week you looked very, very solid, like you were completely healthy, not missing any of your kicks. And then it started off today with a missed extra point, which was to tie the game at 14, and then we're just like, that's what Harrison Butker does. That's what he does, so just move forward. And then you missed the game-winning field goal in regulation. It's just like, this is not the same kicker we're used to. If you're struggling with the injury, just let it be known. I don't want to hear in the offseason, especially if special teams cost this team a chance to the Super Bowl, to hear, well, I didn't play healthy throughout the whole year, and that's why I had one of my worst careers. I don't need that BS. Let the team know to where if they need to bring another kicker in, have it be. And I get it. The Kansas City Chiefs have brought in other kickers this year, and it hasn't looked pretty as well. Actually, kicking this year has been a huge question mark around the league. But when Harrison Butker goes from one of the greatest kickers in the league to actually, his first 3 years as the Chief, he's only missed 4 kicks, to now this year, he has missed 5 kicks in one whole year. Question marks are going to arise. And now they're asking, do we need to look for a kicker in the offseason? And I wouldn't be surprised if the Kansas City Chiefs do in the draft because you're just not the same kicker as you once was. And it's very unfortunate to see because the dude can nail like 70-yard field goals and he's just not in his groove. Again, I don't know if it's injuries. I don't know if it's in his head. I don't know what it is. But at the end of the day, I just want the Harrison Butker of old. And sometimes I don't even want that because I know the Harrison Butker of old, he'll still give you missed extra points. But at least he's clutch. And we're not even getting that as well. And then we're just going to focus on special teams as a whole because they didn't really do anything too alarming, but special teams, and that's including kicking as well, has been atrocious this year. And then you look at Dave Tope. What are you doing? You were one of the best, if not best, special team coaches in the league. And now you're putting together one of your worst special team performances of the year. And it's something we haven't really seen corrected. It's like, we try to see adjustments on the punt, we try to see adjustments in the kick return, and we try to see adjustments in the kicking game on field goals, and it just hasn't been there. And I know at the end of the day, the Kansas City Chiefs #1 excuse and the Chiefs Kingdom #1 excuse, and the Kansas City Chiefs aren't going to say it, but I've seen it all over media, is this team is young. And a lot of Chiefs Kingdom is saying, oh, well, this was supposed to be a rebuild year anyway, so we should be happy it's 11-3. I ain't buying none of that shit. That is not legit to me whatsoever. They built a team to put around Mahomes this year in the offseason to make sure he gives them a chance to win a Super Bowl. This was never a rebuild year. It never will be a rebuild year as Patrick Mahomes is the quarterback. Do you have young pieces? Yes. But when you replace superstars as in Tyrann Mathieu, even though he was on a slump year, and Tyreek Hill, you expect their replacements to step in, and maybe not to the level, but to produce and to take them to a championship year. This rebuild nonsense that everyone says is like, well, we should all be accepting that, hey, they're 11-3. They made the playoffs. They might get a playoff win. We should be happy on a rebuild year. Not in my books. As long as Mahomes is quarterback, as long as Coach Reed is the coach, they should have a legit chance to win the Super Bowl every year alongside any injuries that happen. And they have been healthy for the most part of this year. Things just haven't clicked and for way too long this year. I understand stretches where you struggle, but it's been a season. Things need to get corrected and fast because if the Kansas City Chiefs want to hold up that Lombardi this year, those key areas I focused on, whether it be the O-line, whether it be the turnover differential, anything like that, the defense in a whole, if those don't get corrected, Mahomes is just one man. He may be the MVP, but he can't do it all on his own. Maybe miraculous, he may prove me wrong, but it would be a difficult way to win the Super Bowl. With that, Chiefs Kingdom, I'm going to close this video off. Let me know some of your thoughts in the comments down below after this game, how you're feeling for a Super Bowl run. With that, please be sure to subscribe to the channel. Give me that big thumbs up if you like this video. I will check back in with you shortly. Y'all take care.